Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just try to call out the names in the order in which I can see them. Just brief introduction, your name, what is your background, and what currently you are doing. For example, maybe you are studying. For example, it is you are in a particular company doing a job. Anything is fine. Just to understand what kind of background we have in this particular group. So we have A Royal, first member. Are you present, sir? A Royal? Sir, you are on mute. If you can unmute yourself, then very interesting. Thanks a lot. It's more of an Afghani topi, by the way. But yes, it has a close connection with Himachali as well. Okay. So thanks a lot, sir. Then we have Abhay Sahu. Mr. Abhay Sahu, are you there? Abhay Sahu? All right. Akanksha Bansal. Okay. Thanks a lot, Akanksha. Thank you. Then we have Angel Peter. Do we have Angel Peter over here? No issues. Bhargav Mishra. Mr. Chandrasekhar. Do we have Mr. Chandrasekhar? Mr. Dheeraj? Yes, sir. Very nice, sir. Sir, your good name, please? Neeraj Gaikwad. Okay, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. Do we have Mr. Dheeraj over here? Okay. So just to brief all of you, uh, many of the participants have joined in a few minutes back. So let me just brief you. We are just trying to have a quick introduction. The idea is to just to get a understanding of what kind of participants we have so that we can curate our session in a much better way. So we are going alphabetical order and till now, yeah. So we have now Mr. Gautam. Gautam, are you there, sir? Yes. Good evening, sir. Okay, sir. All right, sir. All right. Thank you so much. Uh, then we have Mr. Kumar, K. Kumar, Mr. K. Kumar. Harman Kaur, do we have Harman Kaur? Okay. Gatwad sir, we have already done. Pavitra, Tamesh, Preetham Das Gupta, yes. Prathamesh sir, yes. BTech course. Which college you mentioned? Pune. All right, all right. Welcome. Preetham Das Gupta, Sathya, Pandey, Srijani Goswami. Do we have Srijani? Hello. Hello. Welcome, Srijani. Sudarsh. Sorry, yes, yes. Who's this? Shruti Pandey? Yes, Shruti, please. Welcome, Shruti. Uh, Kaviraj? Okay. Sarveen Kaur? You are pursuing which course? Sorry. Okay. Which college? See. Okay. Okay. Welcome. Then we have Vidhi Sharma. Thank you, Ms. Vidhi. So, do we have anybody who maybe joined late and then is awaiting introduction? You can just unmute yourself and speak if you want. Okay, okay, no issues. So, let me introduce myself. Yes, yes, Mr. Kumar. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Welcome. Anyone else? You may raise your hand so that we can just have a look and then we can give the mic to you who still awaits introduction. All right, no issues, no issues. So, I'll just my screen on share and then we'll start with the session. So maybe just one person can actually tell me if you are able to see my screen. Is it visible? Anyone? Okay. It is on the full screen. What is there anyone else who is unable to see the full screen? Still joining in. So the screen was in full screen. Ambrose sir, please let me know if you are able to see the full screen. It's full screen, right? Okay, okay, great, great. Okay. So when I'm presenting, probably I will not be able to see your faces, but because the screen will be shared. Whenever there is a need of any discussion, we'll just go through these slides and we'll try and understand what we are talking about and how we can go about having questions and answers. So this course, as you all know, is basically innovation by design. It's one of the NPTEL course. It is one of the courses which has many takers in previous years. The course has been curated and designed by Professor V.K. Chakrabarty sir, and he's also one of the very renowned academicians in the design education sector. My name is Abhishek Srivastav. I am an architect, an industrial designer. So I did both my education from School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. After that, I did a brief stint with a job profession as well. So I worked at Infosys as a interface designer and a few design studios. I also have a very brief year of experience with a startup for almost 2 years. And meanwhile, I was, shaping up my startup. I also started teaching in few institutions. So, Department of Design at SPA, followed by a private university and then a state government university. Currently, I am a research scholar and I'm pursuing my PhD at Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. And how we got associated with NPTEL is also something which I would like to mention here that so there is a very interesting scheme by the government. It's called PMRF, Prime Minister's Research Fellowship. So all the students who are pursuing PhD, they can apply for it. They have certain eligibility criteria, and if you get selected, then you get a good amount of stipend. And as a matter of fact, you also need to devote some time in terms of teaching as well. So NPTEL gave us a platform to utilize this platform in terms of teaching aspect. So I had an experience of teaching, but now again this is another kind of an experience of teaching here. So so I hope we'll be meeting 4 times. So since it's a 4-week course, and the idea is to try and help you in terms of understanding the assignments, in terms of understanding the course content. Also, design is also a field which has many multifold experiences. So it's very important to also understand that it's a very subjective thing. Based on experience, the same product can have a different experience for you. It can have a different experience for me, because the experience are driven by a lot of factors, by our upbringing, by our socioeconomic factors, and hence it's very hard to convey or tell that this is a great design or this is not a very great design, because it's all driven by your experiences. And also in terms of addressing queries, it becomes little subjective and debatable, because we all have certain preconceived notions about certain aspects. So in a way, I'm also a learner in this field, and I think we all as a group can actually understand and try to resolve the questions of each other. So wherever there is a question, there are certain questions which are there in the discussion forum. And even if there are some more questions, we can all as a group try and resolve it if possible. Okay. So the general agenda for this particular session is basically to help you in understanding the current run of courses. So when I say current run of courses, the current course is a 4-week course, and the live sessions will help you in terms of probably understanding the content. And if you have any queries or questions with respect to filling up of the assignment, or your own comprehension, or you have certain doubts over the content which has been provided, I can try to address that, and we all can also try to address that. Uh, Second point is very important, because We will not be solving the current assignments because that is something you will be evaluated on, right? So we'll be solving the previous year's questions. Okay, I'm not sure if any one of you had taken this subject in the previous year as well, but I think that's a rare possibility. But even that is so, the idea is to give you an understanding of how the questions are solved. Now, in NPTEL, there are many courses. There are courses from mechanical domain, from aircraft domain, and since when that is the domain, then you have a lot of numerical based questions. So you have formulas, you have variables, you put in certain value and try to solve it. But here in this case, it's more like an MCQ questions, and how you address them is basically you go through the content, you try and understand the content, you try and absorb the content, and then you try to address those. So the idea is that we will try to discuss the previous year's questions, and what we can do is, it can be an open-ended question because all of you have gone through the content. Maybe you can also pitch your answers, and then we'll see, what is the correct answer. I think NPTEL platform has already mentioned that, we have a very interesting forum called discussion forum, wherein you have a tab called Ask a Question. So wherever you have an issue with a particular video, you can post that as a question in the discussion forum. Some of the questions I've tried to address it, but I also felt that, when we are having this kind of meeting, probably it's much more better in terms of understanding what is going in your thought process, and that's the better way of answering that question. So again, if you have any questions, discussion forum is a great platform because it's also there as a part of physical documentation, and we can actually keep a record of it. And even in my presentations, I will have a section at the end where we'll try to address all those questions as well in the discussion forum. These are certain, we cannot say it rules, but let's say that let's try to practice this. So let's all keep our mic on mute unless you have a question or you're trying to respond to a particular question. Uh, that is because we are trying to record the session, and the recording will also be made available on a YouTube channel. So there might be possibilities that you are able to attend today's session, but then maybe, next session there is some urgency, there is some meeting, some assignment, you are unable to be a part of the session. But in that case, you can actually refer to the YouTube video, and you can gain more, insights from that. And this question, this part I've already mentioned that, let us keep discussion forum as a platform to have this question and answer, because it helps you in documentation, and it will also give all of us certain time to ponder upon, because everybody can actually see what the question is, and you also can pitch in and try to address that. So even if you have an answer and you are not an instructor or a teaching assistant, you can also put in your view, and that is also acceptable. So let us be open in that and share our views. This is the YouTube link, and I believe that NPTEL would have also shared these two links. This is for the YouTube, wherein you can actually see all the videos. So the 4 videos we'll be uploading there, and the presentation deck which we are discussing today, that will also be uploaded in this Google Drive folder, which will have access to all. So anybody who has the link can actually access it. Okay. Course preview, I think just to give you a brief, the course name is Innovation by Design. It's by Professor V.K. Chakravarti sir. Uh, Again, he's a professor at IDC, IIT Bombay. Those of you who may not know what IDC is, so it's basically stands for Industrial Design Center. And one of the amazing aspect of this is that it was among the oldest institutions wherein industrial design got started. So it started in 2 institutions. It was NID and IDC, IIT Bombay. Okay. The course run is for 4 weeks. It's almost 1 month duration. It's a short course, and in each and every week's content, there are certain modules which you need to go through, you need to understand. So that module is complemented with a video. It also has a transcript. So the aim is to have much more universal audience. so that you can also read the content. And it also has certain case studies to give you a much more understanding. So there are certain live case studies which the professor has done uh, while working on certain projects, and then there are certain more case studies which has been referred to in the form of YouTube videos. So we started the content on 23rd Jan and it's going to end in 17th Feb. And there are certain deadlines in terms of assignment. What I came across was that week 1 and week 2 deadline is on 8th Feb, so which is tomorrow. So if you have missed through that, please try and submit all your assignments tomorrow as well. The final examination is on 26th March. There were certain questions around examination. Now, let me clear that out. See, examination is much more like, I also have a slide for that. But the examination is more like a physical examination. You will be going to a particular center, you will get a hall ticket, and you have to sit there because the examination will be of 3 hours duration. You will be able to select the slot. So there is a pre-lunch and a post-lunch slot. So depending upon your availability and your timing, you can actually select 9 to 12 or 2 to 5. And with respect to the examination centers, there will be a list. So based on your convenience, reachability, and all those factors, you can select, and then you can opt for the examination. Okay. There was also a question on the certificate aspect. See, the entire course is free in terms of content. So anybody who can just log in on NPTEL portal and actually go through the content. But if you uh, need a certificate will be given only when you appear for the examination in the designated centers. And for that, there is a certain fee which you have to pay. So anybody who wants to learn from the course, they are free to use it. But for a certification purpose, because in certain colleges, this is also counted as a credit course, right? Or, it's also count for faculties, it is counted as probably a FDP, faculty development program. So for both the needs, there has to be an end certification that you have done this, and that's the idea of having a nominal fee in terms of giving you a certificate. This is a basic criteria. I think all of you have gone through it, but since it's the first session, let me just brief you. So, like for each week, there are content. For each week, there are week-wise assignments. Uh, the idea is that you attempt all the 4 assignments, and the best 3 will be taken. So, the best 3 will be taken in terms of consideration for the 25% marks, and the remaining 75% will be counted in your physical examination. So wherein you will go to a hall, you will write those examinations. 75% weightage is given to your physical examination, 25 is this, and then there are certain preconditions as well. So for internal assessment, it has to be more than 10. For exam, it has to be more than 30, and even the combined score need to have marks more than 40. Only in that case you will be getting a certificate. So these are preconditions, and these are set by the NPTEL. I don't have any personal say in this, but I think it is something which is followed across the courses in NPTEL. Okay, so now we are getting started into week-wise content. So in the week 1 content, we saw the 7 concerns, also called as the 7 C's. Then Professor talked about design thinking, the importance of collaboration, how we need to collaborate with different kind of people. So we need to, so for example, you are working on an application or a mobile application, you need to work with the people who are making wireframes. You need to work with the people who are part of visual design team, and then there is a development team, and then there is a client side to it. And then there are manager and there are hierarchy. So to come up with a product which is acceptable, usable, you need to collaborate with a lot of people. And that also was mentioned in the presentation, that as a designer you need to collaborate with multiple people at multiple levels. Then we talked about understanding users. How do you derive design insights? What is the role of prototyping, which is very critical. I think most of the case studies which the professor has talked about had prototyping as one of the crucial steps. uh, and it talks about the first C, which is the cause. And then there are certain value of deaths, also called as the pitfalls, wherein an idea can actually die. And that is one of the critical aspect to any particular design. And then finally, there is a case study of Jaipur Fort. which is a very much customizable design solution which came and happened, and it has been very widely captured from various mediums as well. So just give me a minute. I think a few people have joined in. Just so anybody has any question as of now? This is more of a primer in terms of understanding what is happening, how the content is, how the examinations are. Yes. Yes, yes. Yes, sir. Right, right. Okay, sir. So, sir, when we will log into the NPTEL platform, I think there will be a particular section uh, which will be which has a title called "Ask a Question" or something like that. So once you click on that section, it will say that you need to be joining this group to be a part of that. So maybe one of the learners can also tell the exact process, but that's how I also joined that particular discussion group, and I'm getting the emails as well. So once you log into NPTEL portal, you will in that platform in for that particular subject, you will have that availability to how to be a part of that discussion group. No, sir, that is not the case because we all people also who are trying to take these sessions, we were also informed to join in. I also joined pretty late in that. That is not, since if you have enrolled in the course, you can be a part of that discussion forum. Should not be a problem. Okay, I hope my screen is visible. Thank you so much. Okay, so before we start with the questions, this is a very important aspect. Many of you already would have gone through a lot of examinations, and many of you might have had examinations quite a long back. But just to give you an understanding, so you will have MCQ type of questions, uh, which will either be one of the two. Okay, now the catch here is that this and this has a different typology of answering. So if you are having a question which has a circular box, circular buttons, these are also called as radio buttons. Now, the feature of a radio button is that you can select only one of them. So it will not have multiple answers to it. It will just have one answer to it. So either it could be cheese grilled sandwich, either it could be a veg grilled sandwich, either it could be a paneer. So the question is what sandwich you want, you can select any one of them. Okay. For example, I say that, okay, I need. So the moment you select it, this will be filled and it's a radio button option. So only when it will be selected. The other typology of question is what do you want in your sandwich? So there can be multiple items to it. You know, you can say that, okay, I want cheese. I do not want tomato. I have allergy to it. I want cucumber. Okay, so then you have multi-select options as well, which means that you can have multiple answers which might be correct to that particular question, right? So in this particular weekly assignment, you will have the questions from both feature. There will be certain questions which have just one answer correct, which you will identify using this particular shape. There will be some questions which have multiple answers, and that will have a checkbox like thing. Okay. Now let's get started with the questions. I know all of you might have already gone through the content, and I think a lot of you can actually have the correct answer of this question. So the question is, what is the correct sequence of the seven C's? So these are the options: connection, context, crafting, cause, conception, check, comprehension. You can actually look at the question, give it some time, and maybe in the chat box, you can write your answers. Just give a minute to it, and then we'll see what is the correct answer. The correct sequence of the 7 C's or the 7 concerns. Should it be A, should it be B, C, or D? I do realize that it's a bit hard to, recall each and everything in terms of the order. But if we all try to understand the process flow, I think it will be easy for us as a design process if we try and follow. Let's just check if we have any answers in the thing. Have people replied? Okay, okay. A few have said C, a few have said B. Uh, You can put your message in the chat box, sir. In the this thing, Google Meet. Yes. So answer is also visible now, but let us try. So what is the first step? Anybody? D, B, G. You're missing one of the alphabets. Yeah, yeah. So the first three is correct. D, so we start with the cause. The first C is the cause. I think we have gone through the content of it. Then comes the context. You try and identify a particular context. So there can be problems at multiple spaces in multiple domains, but it's more like finalizing one of the areas will be working. So you contextualize. Then comes your comprehension, which is followed by the check. Now, if you remember the check, it's more like a checklist or the kind of features you would want to have in a particular solution which you are going to design, which leads to the idea of conception or conceptualization, or you do certain ideation, you create more concepts, you generate ideas, and you then select one of the champion ideas. The champion idea is one of the terms which have been used. Then you craft the solution. Crafting solution means that you come up with certain mock-ups. You try and give certain physical dimensions. How it will look, how it will appeal, and then you make the connection. Now, connection is a very important part in this whole process because, as professor also said that any product, any idea, it to be innovative or to be called as an innovation, it's important for that product to make the connection, to connect with the masses. It should reach to the masses. That is the first step, and then it should be usable and it should add certain value to their lives. Okay, so any product which can actually go to the masses, it is much more usable, it is much more functional, and it adds certain value in their lives, that can be called as an innovation. Now, also just to brief you about the design process. Now, this is one of the design process which is called the 7 C's, but if you go more across the globe, there are certain more design processes. So there is a Stanford design process. I'm sorry for my writing, but I think it should be visible. There is a double diamond approach as well. Diamond approach. So anybody who is more interested in terms of understanding what are the other kind of design processes, so everybody, they come up with a certain own approach of solving a problem. So if you want, you can go across these two as well. And but the basic idea and the essence remains the same. You start with a particular problem or a cause. You try and craft. You empathize with people. You try and craft solutions, and then you take it to the user. You take more feedbacks, and once you think your product is resolved, you take it to the masses. Okay, so that is a basic approach which we follow. So yes, the correct answer is C, which is DBGFECA. Any questions in this question? Any doubts? Any query? Yes, 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 please. Okay. Yes, sir. So if you follow those other two methods, so see double diamond, the name given is because of the uh, structure. So you first diverge and then you try and converge. So you diverge with the ideas, you converge and then you diverge and then you converge and then you come with the final solution. Okay. Even in the Stanford design process, like if you have seen in the content which we saw in Innovation by Design, empathy is one of the very important factors wherein you try to fit yourself into the shoe of a particular user. You try to empathize by, there are certain methods of, understanding users. So there is role play method, there's shadowing method where you will shadow the user and see how and observe the user. So what you are doing is you are trying to empathize with the user. What are the pain points? How the user is doing certain job, how he or she is, facing certain problems. Because many a times what happens is that if you go and ask somebody, okay, what are the challenges? People are so used to with their work that they'll say, no, there are no challenges, there are no pain points. But when you as a third person shadow them, see them, how they are working in their natural environment, you will realize that, okay, this is a factor where there is more of a postural discomfort. Say, for example, uh, if we see our mother working in kitchen, there is lots and lots of things which are done in the kitchen. So there is continuous bending down, lifting up, and if you ask the, mother, they'll say that, koi problem nahi, everything is fine. Okay. So, but when from this particular aspect of empathizing, if you will see, across the professions, you will find that, okay, there are certain challenges which you can comprehend and you can try to solve them. So, from a knowledge perspective, I've just mentioned that there are certain more design processes. So if somebody is much more curious, but the basic essence remains the same. You have to empathize, you have to ideate, you have to make certain prototype, certain tangible thing. You have to test it out, and then you have to improve and then go to the market. So that remains the same. That's right. We'll go to the next question. Okay. So the material that Professor Chakravarti used to make props for the police stick is, so you have, it does not require 1 minute or so because it's a very direct answer. And anybody who is confident can also actually speak up the answer if you feel that it's the correct one. Sorry, neoprene rubber. That's correct. Anybody else who has any further exploration or some other answer to it? Okay. So why do you think it is neoprene rubber? Yes, yes, very nice. What's your good name? Okay, great, Neeraj. So yes, neoprene rubber is the right answer because of certain features. It is soft, it is durable, and one of the most important factors was uh, it being lightweight. And we'll try and understand, how these features are helping in making decisions. And the fourth one was it is much more cost effective. Okay. So why does it need to be soft? If you remember, this was the context of policemen who would stand throughout the day for their duties. So the idea was that, it has to be something which is comfortable wherein they can actually lean and sit. So if there is something very hard, it will be obviously not comfortable for them to sit, right? And another added advantage of it was something which professor has mentioned. So can anybody tell what was the added advantage? So apart from being, comfortable to sit, what was the advantage? There was one more advantage to it. Yes, yes, that's very correct. Thank you. So yes, so many a times what happens is that as a policeman, you have to perform your duties. You might come into situations and circumstances wherein you have to control the crowd, you have to manage the crowd. So you have to control them using certain things. By hand, you can not do a lot of things. So even if you are, stopping up a crowd or a mob, actually this part can be used and it will not harm the person much. Just imagine that if there is a stick without anything, it will harm much more because the impact will be much more. This is much more of a softer thing, and the harm would be much less as compared to hard thing. So thank you so much. That was a great observation. It has to be durable because they are doing the duty throughout the day, and this particular product will be exposed to sun. It will be exposed through rain, and the best part is that it is, as a material, is much more heat resistant. Okay, so even in hot temperatures, the deformity would be much less because it has a good durability factor. And even in terms of aging also, the material is much more durable. Okay, so because the material is in much more exposed environment, so material plays a very important role in the design process. Now, say for example, if you go to parks in public domain, you will see benches are made up of cast iron. These are very, very heavy benches. And can anybody tell why they are made of cast iron? The benches and parks are very heavy, and sorry. Yes. So one aspect is that the material has to stand all the different weather changes. So that is one of the very important aspect. And there is one more crucial aspect. Great, great. Yeah, so you can actually melt the material and you can cast it into any shape. That is again a great solution. Any other person? Any other point of view which you see? Interesting, very interesting. Anybody else? Great, sir. Great, sir. This is also one of the very, very important factor because what happens is that whatever you have things in the public domain, they are much more prone to get damaged or not damaged. The issues of thefts are there. So if you have something which is so heavy, it's very, very hard to actually lift them and actually take them across. So that is also one of the intentions to make things which are not that easy to lift and to take it away, because in India we do see a lot of examples of things in public domain and they getting lost. So like the drain covers, they just get lost. People just take it. Yes. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So we have a very interesting and diverse group, and thanks a lot for participating. That helps in understanding the other facets of design, material selection, and what all have to be taken care when you are, deciding a material. Great. Thanks a lot. We'll go to the next question. What material pattern they have decided to go with to export the lathis pulley stick into the international market? This was again a part of that police stick wala case study wherein they were making certain things. So, okay. Anybody else who has any further answers to it? Okay. So Kate is the right answer. And let me just so can anybody tell me what is the difference between a bamboo and a cane? The broad difference of bamboo and a cane, how the two differs. Great, sir. Great. So that's the correct answer. Now let us try and see how a bamboo looks like. So bamboo, probably we all have seen. So it is a something which has a hollow cross section. So you will have knots. So these are called the knots, and usually it is hollow. Okay. So although bamboo as a material is also used in construction in terms of load bearing structures as well. But when we are using a very small cross section of it, especially in a latte form, if you see the cross section of cane, it is much more solid. So here it is hollow, and here we see a solid cross section. Okay, and like sir said that it is also moldable. So you would also see walking sticks made from cane. So you heat it and you bend it. That also happens in bamboo, but then cane as a material for this particular use case of making a police stick was opted because they wanted to brand it in a certain way. Can anybody tell what kind of branding they would want to give to? Yes, yes. So in the international market, they would want to brand it in a certain way. There's a particular term which they used. Great, great. That's the right answer. So if you see today, sustainability is a very buzzword. You would have heard about sustainable, development goals. In Hindi, we call it Satat Vikas Lakshya. And there are some 15 to 20 goals. Do not know the exact figure, but there are, these number of goals. And it has been devised by UN, and so it has quality education, health, poverty, and a lot of different goals are there. Meanwhile, so sustainable and sustainable product is something which they would want to pitch to the international market because we are all talking about something called a circular economy. We do not want to create much more waste. We want to create something which goes back to the cycle of the entire manufacturing process. So the idea was to pitch it as a sustainable product and for the holistic segment. Thank you. Let's go to the fourth question. Professor Chakravarti's collaborative model consists of. Uh, just take a time to read all the four options: corporates, marketers, designers, workers. Then you have primary, tertiary, secondary users, enterprise-wide core group, external team, workers, designers, and users. C. Uh, okay, okay. So one person said C, one person said A. Are there any more answers you think that might be correct? Okay, one person says B. Uh, why should why should we leave D then? Let's also include D as well, no? That is the only one left alone. Great, great. Okay, okay. So correct. So marketers and manufacturers are not included. So which is why D option won't. Oh, okay, sir. Okay. So we have three answers as of now, which includes corporate, marketers, designer, workers. People also said that primary, secondary, tertiary users. So what do you think the problem is with the B option? Anybody who can tell why it should not be the B? Hmm. 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 Okay. Okay. Great. And how many of you feel that it should not be A? Corporates, marketers, designers, workers, and probably why? So, see, I'm so sorry I cannot see the Google chat as of now. If you want, you can speak up. If you have any answer to it, please do speak up. No, so the idea of sharing your answers is more like in terms of engaging and having a discussion. Whatever your answers are, we are not marking it or you're not getting any points for it. It's more in terms of engagement and discussion. So be free from that perspective. You can unmute and you can speak. That is also perfectly fine. Okay. Anybody who would want to comment for this particular question? Okay. So if you recall, when we were talking about this collaborative model, I think we all understand what a collaborative model is. Collaboration is where you बोलते हैं ना से हाथ मिलाना, you connect with people and you build something. So let us not work in silos, let us work in a much more collaborative model. It should be more interdisciplinary, which the teams should meet. These are the terms which we use, in corporate, even when we are working on a particular design project or so. So when we talked about collaborative model, it as a graphic, if you remember, because illustrations are something which we recall much more rather than the plain text. Okay, so there were three concentric circles. So can anybody tell what was the inner core? Great. So the inner group was the core group. Okay. What would be the second circle? Yes, yes, correct. It would call the support team, which could also mean enterprises in there. And the third thing is great, great, great. So I think the illustration also helps you a lot in terms of remembering certain things. If you can remember it by an example, I think it would be really great. But these were the three concentric things which we saw in this particular collaborative model. So the inner group is the core group. Then comes your support team, which is also the enterprise sector, and then your external group. So the correct answer for this question would be C. Okay. So let's go to the next question. Again, the answers would be very close to each other, but let us try and see the question. An idea is considered as innovative when first option is designers emphasize deeply with the community that creates methods towards finding solutions. It gives a solution that makes a positive impact on large number of users, and it truly stands out from the rest and makes the user's life easier. Yes. Okay, so one person says C. I will just write the boards, okay, so that so we have one person saying C. Okay, I think this should be empathize. I'm so sorry. I think that might be it might be empathize. Yes, please. Any more answers to it? See, anyways, I don't know who is answering because I cannot see. But okay, so you're saying that empathy is one of the factors that has to be uh, taken care. Key factor, key factor. Yes. Okay. Okay. So you mean to say that probably A option can also be the answer. Correct. 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 Yes. Very true, sir. So, as you have rightly mentioned, empathy is one of the critical factors in the design process. Like we discussed in the initial slides, that one has to empathize with the end user. You have to live in the natural environment or visit people in their natural environment to see the challenges and understand and then propose a solution. So yes, it is a critical factor, but it is one of the initial factors. Okay. It truly stands out from the rest and makes the lives users' lives easier. Okay. Okay. Anybody who has any comments for the D1? Why it should be the answer or why it should not be the answer? You can also agree to the answer. So you're saying that large number of user is a critical factor for innovation. So that is why. Okay. Okay. So let us try and comprehend the two answers, the C and D. They are pretty close. Now, when we talk about a particular solution and we try to assess it in terms of innovation, uh, in the content wise, one of the critical aspect is how it is making the connection, or the probably the last C, right? How it is reaching out to the masses. Okay. Otherwise, if it is not happening, then it is dying in the last value of death or the pitfall, right? So if it is at a prototype level, people are happy about it, but then it has not made into the market, people are not using it, then probably you have not reached that particular stage of innovation. Now, so that is why answer C would be correct. Now let us try and understand the option D. Now, if you see the first aspect of this line, no, I'm not saying that this is the incorrect one, but then this aspect is something which is correct. A product should in general make the people lives easier, in terms of their existing or contemporary products, but it has to have certain more value to it so that it helps and makes their life easier. So that is one of the requirement. But saying that it should stand out from the rest, just being unique is not sufficient it to be innovative. So there are many products which are unique. There is this juicer called Juicy Salif. I think it's by one of the renowned designers, film, and Juicy Salif, and it's a spider shaped juicer. Maybe the design students can actually would have seen it. Is there any design student right now? So it's shape of a spider, and the idea is that you squeeze a lemon to it. Okay, so it is very unique. People saw it and they were very delighted to use it, and it had a very distinct identity in terms of a lemon squeezer. Okay, but when you try and use it, there are many challenges. It's metallic, so it scratches the tabletop. When you squeeze the lemon, it drips all along. It becomes very messy. But people have appreciated for it being very unique and having it's more like an art to them, right? So there are many products which probably may not be usable, but then they are very much celebrated because then there is a certain added value of it becoming an art or it becoming a sculpture, right? So this particular part is much more closer, but then the final answer is C part because it has to have a positive impact on large number of users. It should reach the masses, and that is the important aspect that has been emphasized for any product or service to be innovative. Okay. Let me just quickly check. There are certain people who are planning to join in. Okay, there are people joining in. Okay. Okay. So this is the sixth question. We will have 10 questions, so not more than that, and we have already taken up 1 hour. Please read the question. The question is the LEDs used in vein tracer are. Okay, very, very, very instant and very correct. Infrared. Can you please tell why infrared, or what are the features which help them in. Perfect, sir, perfect. So the deoxygenated blood in the veins, they appear to be dark and black. Yes, blacker. So it's primarily used in terms of identification of the veins which appear dark in color. So that helped them in identifying veins, and that helped them in utilizing that particular LED in terms of vein tracer. Now, but there was one of the challenges using infrared. Can anybody tell what was the challenge? Perfect, perfect, sir. So heating was an issue because again, it's a product which is in medical domain. It's a biomedical product, and then products in the medical domain have to be extra safe because it is being used in a lot more people, a lot many people who are already suffering. And if you try and make something which might be dangerous to them, then it could be a total fallback for that product. So they had heating issues with infrared, and how did they were able to resolve it? Anybody? Yes, yes. So they basically used heat filters, and as people have mentioned, they use that material in terms of filtering the heat and in terms of ensuring that the heat does not reach the particular skin aspect. So correct, sir. So, so even when we are looking at products and when we are trying to observe any product, I think it's a very just like sir said that each one of us should have an idea book. Even if there is an idea or not, even if you are seeing a product and if you realize that okay, this is certainly a cool feature. Say for example, you have warmers at your home, right? You have geyser at your home. Just imagine that they are so heated up, and then they have an auto cut auto shut option because it is making your life easier. Okay, you don't have to remember that okay, my geyser is on, I need to off it, because there were many tragedies that happened, and that led to people thinking about how do we auto shut the geyser, and that's where this thermostat and a lot more things came up in terms of disconnecting when you reach a particular threshold. So if you see your iron, if you see a geyser, all that, oil-filled radiators, they all have that particular feature of, ensuring that, the safety is mentioned in that particular product. So safety is, yes, primarily a very big concern. And I think one of the questions in the discussion forum was also related to particular material and safety. We'll also try to discuss over that. So next question. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So I'm not very sure about VIS LEDs, but graphene is more of a material, and what I have learned through about graphene is that it's a material which can also be utilized in as a skin sensitive thing, and can help you in terms of memory sticks and memory devices as well. Just like you have a pen drive, you have graphene sticks available. So it has quite a lot of possibilities, but since I'm not having a very mechanical background or material background, it would be hard for me to tell you the exact. Maybe in the group, if there is somebody from that background, they can help us understand. Okay, 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 okay. So if you have anybody from a much more mechanical and technical background, probably that person can help us here. Sure, sure. Yes. Okay. Okay. Right, sir. Right. Oh, thanks a lot. Okay. So the seventh question: what happens when you make multiple concepts for the same problem? The answers are we become passionate about the solution, results in unexpected and disruptive ideas, more options, more informed choices, and the last one is chance of getting failed reduces. So, the, okay, any more answers? Okay, so the only answer which we have got is chance of getting failed reduces. Do you think there could be any other solution to this? What happens when you make multiple concepts of a problem? Okay. Now, I remember that when I was studying, and one of my teachers said, in design only, one of my teachers said that for a question you might have an answer, but for a problem you have multiple solutions. And that was a statement that kind of I hold to it for quite a long time, and it satisfies very much in the context of design that for one particular problem you can actually have lots and lots of solutions. So so when I was going through this question, this actually triggered the same statement which my faculty has mentioned, that questions may have answers, but then problems will have multiple solutions. So yes, what happens is that if you remember in the content which was given, um, so there were certain checks that were made, that it should be lightweight, it should be easy to use, and likewise. And then a lot of concepts were generated. Okay. So you have a certain, say for example, you have feature one, you have feature two, you have feature three. Okay. And then you make a lot of concepts. All right. If you recall, they generated some 100, concepts. Now what happens is that you pick one of them and you try to merge features of that. Pick one of them and then you try to merge features of that. And then when you try to group them, you come up with your idea. Now this kind of bucketing, you can say, or this kind of clustering, you can say, whatever the term is, clustering, bucketing. So you bucket ideas in certain heads, and then you try to merge them, and then you try to come up with your final final idea. So what happens that we have seen that they came up with three concepts. There was concept one, two, and three. Now what happens is that if you have three concepts, and those concepts needs to be much more diverse in nature. It should not be in the same line of thought, it should not be in the same direction, but it has to be much more diverse in terms of nature. Now the moment you have more choices available, so say for example you went to the market and so concept one is not working, then actually you have another two concepts wherein you can much more explore, and you can take it to the prototyping aspect, and then you can again reach the market. So yes, chance of getting failed reduces dramatically. Also, there is a C factor important, because more options will lead to more informed choices. Now, can anybody help me explain how is this possible? If you have more options, how will you generate more informed choices? Anyone? Any thought around it? Okay, okay, sure. So you're basically trying to say that you can have a solution for a particular context, and sure, sure, sure. Yes, I think that was a that. Thanks a lot, ma'am. I think that is a very, very great example, and I must appreciate that you have been doing so much of work past 11 years. That must be a lot of effort from your side as well, in terms of creating so many choices, and then at that moment you make certain decisions. So very appreciable. Great. So, like ma'am said, I think that is very much apt, because the more you have options, and say for example, you have 3 to 4 options. When you go for prototyping, maybe the vendor will say that, okay, this might not be possible. This kind of molding is not possible, or we cannot make die in this particular shape. So you have certain more backup options, and you can make much more informed decision in terms of, okay, this is a particular option wherein, the die will be easier to make, and we can actually make this kind of engravings or this kind of finishes. So more options, you'll have much more things on your plate, and then you can have much more things to offer. So with that, let us try and move to the next question. Okay, what was the root cause of designing the vein tracer? I think vein tracer is a very interesting case study, which went into multiple context. So we'll have a question on that as well. So okay, so people say that it is C. Let us read through the options. Finding vein was painful to child. The waste of time in finding vein. It was so painful for the people to get pricked multiple times and the blood sampling. Okay, okay. Now, if you see the options, all these options are logical in terms of certain aspect, because when you're talking about a child, finding vein is actually important. So especially when you have very small kid and infants, it's very hard. So they have to, they have a very hard time in terms of identifying it. Yes, because they have a hard time, so the time taken is much more. But the root cause which we are talking about, the way we started with the project of, in a blood donation context, the issue was that people were getting pricked multiple times. And why this becomes a problem? Because if you see the context of blood donation, it is something which is volunteer, right? Uh, you will not be made a compulsion that, okay, you go and you donate a blood. Okay, it is something which is volunteer. People are self-motivated to go and do this. We can say that it's a noble act. People should do it. Now, the challenge was that even when people are going with their self-motivation and doing something noble, but then they are again facing a pain. They are getting pricked multiple times. So even in this act of benevolence, they are, having certain interruptions of pain and, discomfort in terms of doing this particular act. So that was one of the root causes of, designing the vein tracer. Anybody has any point of view? Sure, sir, sure. Yes. Uh, yes, yes, yes. Actually, that is very painful. And if maybe any of you have experienced an ICU, I hope that should not be the case. But then, even because of IV and all, you have, that IV thing which is there. And if you stay for more than 10 days or 15 days, you have to shift it from one hand to another hand. And even that is very, very challenging, because the hand will become swollen. You will, I think, you all of us saw that one particular image in a baby's hand, wherein it had multiple dark spots because of the blood clot and different pricks at that time. So let's hope we should not get into those particular scenarios, and let's be safe from that particular thing. But the root cause was the pain and getting pricked multiple times. Okay, okay. Now that is a very interesting insight. Yes, the skin becomes loose, and then pricking. So that also requires multiple pricking then. Okay, okay. So yes, it's a problem which goes across ages then. Yes. So thank you for sharing that story, and I believe that it must be very hard time. So even from a caregiver perspective and the people who are around the person who is suffering, I think that is the kind of visual suffering that we also face because there is hardly anything which we can do. It could not be a situation where we can get pricked in place of them. So even for the people who are around a person who is in hospital or who is getting this treatment, it becomes very challenging to even sit and to even see the kind of pain which the people are facing. So yes, I think design plays a very critical role in these scenarios, and even when I saw the this particular case study, I think I really felt that, especially in the case of babies where they're so sensitive, they're just born, and many times they had to be given a lot of things or, testing is required. It would have been a very hard for a parent to see all that happening from their eyes. So irrespective of ages, I think that is a very painful thing to see and to experience. So let us hope that this comes to the market and we can, have a better design available for it. So let's go to our second last question. Why was the vein tracer proved to be unusable with anesthesia patient? Uh, so the answers are right up front to you. You can actually read them and share what do you think is the right answer. So I think I do recall that this particular aspect of anesthesia patient has been discussed in a very brief uh, format in the video as well. But let me just tell you the answer. See, when we talked about coming up with a solution, then we also said that okay, context is very important. And if you remember in this particular vein tracer, we started with the uh, context of blood donation camp. So it started with blood donors and interviewing them, and then it transitioned to hospitals wherein the student went across and asked certain people, and then he came across a situation where it was being used for pediatrics. So when you're coming up with the solutions, it's very important that you try and stick to a particular context because for every different context, you have different set of parameters, different set of attributes which you have to encounter. So when they started with the vein tracer, they did not consider anesthesia patient. So that was not into consideration because of which it was not that effective for that particular user group. So whenever we are trying to come up with an idea or a solution, it is important that we uh, try to contextualize our domain in terms of this is the segment which we want to target. And I think a lot of us would have heard that term, target audience. So even if there is a startup or you're pitching an idea, you need to have that particular target audience. It cannot be, for all, each and every people. So once you have that target audience, you try and understand their pain points. You do, like I mentioned, you do shadowing. You try to do certain ethnographic study wherein you observe the user. You see what kind of, say for example, in this case, what kind of treatments they are getting, what kind of medication they have, what is the duration of anesthesia, when it is what time it takes to come back to their senses. So a lot of these things have to be taken into consideration before you come up with certain solutions. So that did not happen in this particular case, and which is why it was not usable in this context. But yes, it had a great value, like we discussed also in terms of identifying veins and reducing the number of pricks in the users. And this comes to our final and conclusive question. Why Professor Chakravarti used the last prototype of vein tracer design for the pediatric ward as an example of pause and the user? So the options are because it shows how we can see different causes in the same product segment. It shows the necessity. Okay, so it can be A. The second is because it shows the necessity of getting into the field to study the user needs. So that is something which you anyways have to do, right? You anyways, irrespective of a vein tracer. any product you do, you have to get in the field because it shows how one can fall into the valley of death if he or she doesn't stick to the problem. Okay. Yes, sir. All these are very close to each other. Uh, because it shows how the same product have to go through different stages of development according to their need. Uh, yes, I think all of them have certain value in terms of being an answer to this. But if we talk specifically about paint tracer, yes, the option A is correct. It shows how we can see different causes in the same product segment, so we can actually see, where all it can be used. But at the same time, we also said that, how one can fall into the valley of death if he doesn't stick to the problem. Okay, so like we discussed in the previous question about anesthesia patient, because that was not into an area of consideration, so it could not go there, and this product could not. So can anybody tell why this product went into the valley of death? Okay, yes, so you. Yes, so if it is not able to make a niche in the market segment in terms of its usability, appropriability, then yes, it will fall eventually into the value debt. So any product, irrespective of any specific or biomedical, especially in biomedical, the laws are much more stringent in terms of their use, their safety concerns. So in medical domain, any product has to go through a lot of scrutiny, and it has to ideally go through a lot of scrutiny because it's anyways a matter of lives, and then the product should not be a failure. Let me just have a look at the Google Meet if there is any more thing, and then we can uh, come to the discussion forum as well. Just quickly. People are still joining in. I would request all people maybe who have joined in a bit late, please join by 7 so that we start at time. And because when I'm going with the presentation, it becomes hard for me to switch back to the meet and then accept and admit. So we can have like 10-15 minutes margin, we all can have, unless it's a case of emergency for you that you'll be able to join only after 1 hour. That is a separate thing. Okay. So let's quickly go through the discussion forum questions. I have tried to tabulate the questions which were posted in the discussion forum, and I've also attempted in terms of writing my particular perspective. Now, again, I would like to say that in design, it also matters about having a perspective. Now, like I said, that it depends on various experiences, various upbringing and socioeconomic, socio-cultural backgrounds. A lot of notions in design come from that aspect. So I would not say that all the comments or all the answers written are the perfect ones, are the truest ones. You may also have your own theory, you may also have your own understanding, and that could also be correct. Okay, so the first question which was posted was, so I have not written the name just to remain much more anonymous in terms of whosoever is asking the questions. The first question was related to exam, and I have already answered that. It was only during the time of COVID that there was some discussion on how we can have it offline, sorry, online, and there was some discussion, and then certificate perspective it was also made to either the fee got refunded or people were asked to come at a certain particular time of their convenience. But now, since we don't have that kind of urgency, all the examinations will be in physical mode. You will have to reach the examination center on that particular date of March. You have to sit for that 3 hour question examination, and you have to uh, but before that, you need to register. So there is also a deadline to registration for that course in terms of if you want to appear for the exam. So please keep a note of that, and you'll get a lot of answers from the announcement section as well. There was one question. This was where in the professor was explaining about the police stakes, that they went to meet the people from the police team, and when they saw the prototype, they said that, okay, please give us 200 of that. Now, Probably the question was more in terms of what is happening. See, in any institution or academics, there are certain process flows. Okay, even in corporate there are certain process flows. If a new project will come, then it will follow certain checks. There will be this business analyst. There is this client who's coming up with a project, and then you will try to identify the number of people involved and kind of human hours which are required. Okay, so even when in academics you take up a project from the industry, you follow a certain path, so the project will come and then there are certain rules and regulations of the institution on the percentage sharing of the revenue and how you will go about. So every institution has their own process flow a process flow or mechanism of taking up industry projects, and a lot of academicians and educators do that. So it is also in terms of getting a direct connection with the industry, because in that ways you can loop in students on real life projects, and they'll get much more understanding. At the same time, these industry people actually give you the right kind of input in terms of the projects they are already working on. So especially in design institutions, what happens is that when you have your final examination, it is much more in a form of jury, wherein there will be a panel who will sit, you'll have to present your work, and the panel is primarily from either industry background or some renowned academician. So it's generally a mix of both, so that you get the inputs from both aspects and you try to improvise. So there is a much more learning involved in that process. So this particular thing, taking up a consultancy project is driven by institute rules, and that's what the professor was talking about. The third question has basically what do you mean by stakeholder. Now, if you want much more understanding of stakeholder, there is very interesting link, interaction design. It's more from a user interface perspective, but then the kind of explanation they give also quite fits well to the product design aspect. Now, so even product design, we say that it's a physical product or a digital product. Okay, so now the boundaries of product design is not limited to just a physical tangible thing, but then even a digital product is also a part of product. Right. So stakeholders means there are the people, the groups, individuals. They can actually influence the design or they can influence by design. So there were various examples in the case studies wherein they mentioned that how do we reach out to different stakeholders, how do we need to keep them in loop throughout our design process, and that probably was also visible in the CRPF bottle case study, wherein I think it's a part of module. Sorry, week two content, but I think week two content was also released. Yes. So they keep those people in loop right from the beginning, which help them in making informed decisions, informed improvements in the whole process. So the fourth question is about how we can start or introduce develop technology of any existing object. I think the best example which already given is the nanofilter. So if we recall that in the CRPF bottle, they explored what are the peer products which are available in the market. So they came up with AquaGuard on the go. There were other products as well, Life Straw. Okay, and then they were having chlorine tablets as well. So they said that okay, this is the nanofilter. That was an existing technology, and they tried to introduce it into their proposition. So you already have that example, and I think it's a very good case study in terms of understanding this particular question of how do we integrate a technology into our product. More or less, if there is any other contextual situation, I think the idea is to, if you have a certain product, you want to bring in certain technology, the obvious way would be to research more what are the technologies available, what kind of trends are there in terms of technology, where these technologies are being used. And then once you have a sufficient understanding of that, okay, this technology might be helpful in my product, then I think it's always a good process that you go and meet the expert. And that's also what happened in all these case studies. Okay, the moment you arrive at a certain decision, they looped in people from the industry. Okay, so even for a tech, you might not have the expertise in that area, but you have a basic understanding. So you may connect with the people who are already in that tech industry, who are working, who are making products. You can discuss with them. You can see the visibility and feasibility of that particular tech in your product, and you can go about it. This was a long question, and this was related to the cooker, the sunrise cooker, the solar cooker. Now, I think this is a part of next week's content, and probably we can actually would have discussed in the next week. But I think I got the point what the learner is trying to make, that that the plastic as a material, when you cook something inside it, then it may have damaging effects. So like I said, now when you are coming up with a design and you are trying to come up with a particular material, a lot of factors are involved in the material selection. Okay, so this includes the price cap, which probably हो सकता है the client would have given a price cap, or you are creating a niche that okay, in this price cap there is no other product, right? So that might also be a factor in terms of selection of a particular material availability, wherein you are manufacturing. If it is material easily available, then okay, that also will help in reducing the cost. How the material is functioning in terms of properties, is it moldable easily, is it mass manufacturable, and what are the different functions of the material which can be taken. So a lot of aspects get into while you are making a decision on material, and then we also discussed in the initial slides as well. So this also includes safety aspects, but if you see the current trends and if you see the researchers, there is also a lot of debate on using plastics. Although there are food grade plastics, in within oven also you keep food stuff in that, and you do a lot of cooking in utensils which are made up of aluminum as well, but that again is said that it's not very good for your health, it's harmful. So unless we have a lot of options available, we have a lot of research happening. I think every material will have a pros and cons. Even if you go back, when we had earthen pots, that time also, even if you use it today, I think cleaning would again be a challenge there. So material selection is something which goes through a lot of point and checks, and come. Let us hope that we get good material which is safe to use in terms of understanding and solving the problem. So the question is genuine, and I think uh, you know as we do more research in terms of what we are eating, how we are eating, we'll get different aspects. Recently, I came across to know that the salts which we are eating, they also have microplastics, because the plastics have dissolved in the sea, and it's going there inside us. So it's very hard to do a check on a lot of aspects, but then let us hope that in future we'll have much more safe products available. Uh, we'll go to the question 6. For this course certificate, should we have to pay compulsory? If somebody cannot pay, can we get the certificate? So this particular question I also checked out with the NPTEL team, and I think they are very clear on the aspect that certification is something that will be given only when you sit for the examination, right? So only when you sit for the examination, you appear in the proctored examination, you fulfill the criteria of assignment score as well as the proctored examination, this thing, and then only you will be getting a certificate. So you will get it only when you pass the examination. Also, it's not the thing that you appear for the examination and you do not score to their boundaries, then you will get a certificate. So you have to maintain a certain marks weightage, which I've already shared, 25%, 75%, and then within those categories, you have to ensure that your marks are more than that, so that you are getting a certificate. And then the last question is about this particular video, systematic reasoning according to design thinking. So see if there's any people are still joining in. So probably systematic reasoning as a term was not very much explained in detail. I could not see it. If anybody could, see that happening, you can also share your point of view. I'll just share my point of view on this particular aspect. Now, it was explained that design thinking utilizes a lot more aspects of there should be logic, there should be imagination, intuition. When we say logic, then reasoning comes also into play. Now, one way of understanding systematic reasoning is that systematic is also uh, kind of synonymous with being much more organized, being much more structured. So when you do much more structured form of logic based reasoning, you may also call that. But then when you see that term systematic, it also includes a term called system in it. Now, in design system thinking, system design also have a very interesting meaning to it. So it's not more specific to a product design, but then it becomes a part of the complete system. So in system thinking, what happens is that you do not look at the individual components, but you see the system as a whole. I usually give a very interesting example of a marriage. When you are organizing a marriage, there are so many things involved. So there is this catering aspect, then there is this the whole setup of chairs which have to be ensured. You might also have to look at the aspect of the parking, okay, and then you also have to look at the aspect of people who would greet them. They will climb on the stage and then do that. So a lot of things are involved when you are organizing a marriage. So it's a system in itself which is working. If you just look at, okay, no, let me focus on catering, let us leave all the other things. So that will not give a great experience for the visitors or the guests who are coming in. So you have to uh, think a lot of aspects. The people would come, they should be offered this thing first, and then the main course should open by this time. Meanwhile, the crowd can be managed. What happens if the entire crowd comes at the same time? So likewise, you have starters, you have things like aloo tikki chaat and small things which are there. So you try and manage a lot of aspects. Even in organizations, even when you are coming up with a product, you need to look at systems level in order for the product to sustain in that particular system. If you just come up with a system, sorry, product, it might not help. There's one more very, very interesting example I'll just share and then I'll close from my end. So there was this businessman, and let me stop my screen. So there was this businessman, and what happened was he belonged to a particular village, and what happened was he saw that the women in that village, they used to walk around 8 to 10 kilometers to fetch water. So it was a very remote village, and he said that, okay, now this is something which I should resolve. So what he decided was that, okay, let me put in some money and let me bring piped water to my village. So he invested a lot of money and he brought the piping of water to the particular village. Now what happened was that the initial week, initial 10 days, the entire village was very happy. The women folk was very happy. Okay, this is interesting. We don't have to work so much. We'll save a lot of time. So they started using that water. But eventually, what happened that after a few weeks, he saw that the same trend of going to fetch water from that 8 to 10 kilometers away, uh, it started happening once again. And can anybody tell what could be the reason of this? Why would the women folk again start going 10 kilometers away just to get water when there was a piped water line which was made available to the village? Any idea? Any thoughts? Okay, yeah, that's logical. Maybe they were getting a walking. Okay. So yes, that can be a point of view. Even today, we don't get time to work out, so we try and bicycle, we try to do certain, we walk. So yes, it might be a possibility. Anybody else? What could be the reason? Okay, so that again is a logical point of view that, okay, when you need water probably early in the morning, then they don't have water, and probably the timings of water would be different. Yes, that could be a concern. Anybody else? Sharing the day with others. But that kind of also happen when you have tap water in a village at a particular point. Okay, correct. Okay, so sir has a very interesting point that sharing the day. Okay, we will come to that once again. Anyone else who has any point, any insight or any thoughts coming across? What could be the probable reason? Anything is correct. Like I said, no, problems have multiple solutions, so it could be anything. That's a very, very interesting point. Many a times we say that, product is usable, it is fine, but then the product should also have a delight factor. And probably what sir is saying is that delight factor which we are talking about. You go there, there is a stream, and then there is this sound of water. Probably you are activating a lot of senses, you are engaging through a lot of senses. Maybe they enjoyed that as well. Going for some me time. Okay. All right, all right. So I'll conclude this particular thing. So when he saw this thing happening, uh, he actually then asked a few people, okay, just try to figure out why they are doing this, why this kind of behavior has triggered once again when they are getting water right at their doorstep. So when they talked to the women folk, they said that this was the only time where they could relax, they could have their leisure time, they could actually discuss and gossip and talk for lots and lots of things. Because when you see their environment in a village, they are working continuously inside the day. They start very early, then they have household work. They have to make tiffin lunch boxes for their husbands. They have to prepare the schools for their students for their schools. So it's a very hectic day, and they might have their extended family members as well, parents-in-law, and then their own families. So getting that me time, as ma'am rightly mentioned, it becomes very, very challenging in that particular constrained environment. So when they went out, they would walk in groups. And we would have seen all those pictures, no? Matka aise sar pe rakh ke they would walk, and they would chat and talk, and they would have their leisure time. And that was particularly the insight. So when you are looking at a product, so product wise the solution was there. If you see the part of a problem, the water was the issue, and the issue was addressed. But if you see the complete system, if you see the lifestyle, like I mentioned, socio-economic and other factors, these all things come into play, that how is their lifestyle, what is it that they are doing. If somebody would have shadowed them or interviewed them, probably this would not have happened. So it becomes very interesting, in design, that many times a good solution may not work because of certain factor. So much for sharing, and I think this is a very interesting platform to hear your experiences, and it will help us in terms of understanding this particular subject, as well as even I will get a lot of stories to tell when I am taking more sessions. So thanks a lot for sharing that, and I think for making this entire this thing very very interesting and engaging. So if anybody else would want to share any experience which kind of enfolds this aspect of systems approach, or you have any story to tell, we can have that moment here right now. Sir, I think the example which you gave, another example that came to my mind was a roti maker. So, if you have heard across, yes. So, it sounded very exciting because it was something which people do struggle, especially people who are living alone and who want to eat chapatis. But when you saw the pricing of that particular product, it was around more than a lakh rupees. And the kind of dough you use, and it is a lot of it's quite messy in terms of usage as well. So cleaning the components of that again becomes a challenge. So although that is a product which people would aspire to have, and that is a product which, but then when you talk about that particular product in the Indian context, nobody would want to pay more than a lakh rupees just to have that experience of a product. So it might have that reach or audience in abroad wherein people would want to have it. So contextuality is something which is very very relevant. So, and the other aspect is that the moment you have products making, say for example, we are talking about food, a lot of time, like they say that if you are making a chutney from piece ke aap banate ho, and then you are making it from mixer grinder, the taste is very different uh, in the two, right? So even when we are making things from a product and then we are trying to eat it, a lot of emotion is gone when we are eating it, because that's a machine which is making something. But then when you are making something by hand, there is a lot of senses involved, there is a lot of emotion in that, there is a lot of engagement in that particular product, because you are smelling things, you are there is a lot of sounds which is coming out है ना घर में, when you are cooking सीटी बजती है gas की. So it's a kind of different ambience, and people connect with that, people appreciate that. But the moment it gets reduced to a very compact thing wherein your engagement sensory is very very much reduced and limited, then the experience of having things also becomes a challenge. So there are multiple aspects of seeing what you have mentioned, that you press a button, you get a idli. uh, some people might find it very fascinating, they might eat for a few days, but then they might eventually go back to a local vendor and try and have that. So that is also quite possibility there. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anybody else who would want to share something or share some? Yes, yes, please do. Mhm. So, anybody who has gone through that content would like to answer this question? So one aspect is solved by Sir only. So when they were, you know, pitching that particular solar cooker, they mentioned it that in this particular direction, it will be much more utilizable because you need a certain temperature inside. For that, you need to have sun throughout. So in that particular direction, it will work much more efficiently. Another aspect which was also mentioned was that it should not be limited to a window. So if you remember, there was also a sketch which was which had a caster wheel to it, and it was more of a stand. They mentioned it that it can be used in a garden as well. So there is a garden, you can use it. So it brought certain mobility in terms of fixing a particular cooker, so not limited to the window opening. Also in many of the apartments, although I have seen in Delhi NCR that they leave that particular opening for the ACs. But then it also depends on the kind of direction. If it is south direction, then probably it might be helpful. But if it's some other direction, probably that might not be that very effective. So I think that helps address your query. But any other concerns or query? Sir, I am not very sure about it, but since they are already in public domain, then it's very hard for it to be IP protected now. That is one of the very basic things which we come across in IP protection. That the moment it goes to public, there's hardly anything you can do. So before it gets launched, or you post it in social media, LinkedIn, or in a website or a portfolio, it's better to protect it. Maybe that is a possibility. That is a possibility that they might be patented. But for each of them, I may not have the answer right now. We'll have to see. Um, okay, so that's a very good question. Uh, Sir, I think the better channel would be that we try and so there are multiple platforms which helps them connected. For example, now if you have a certain idea which matches to a particular domain, say for example you are doing something in solar, right? So if you try and connect with an institution, they have different projects in different years. So I'm talking about design because I have that understanding. And for every year they have a certain theme to a project. Okay, so you can reach out to any design college, and you can say that I have a project or I have an idea in mind, and we can collaborate. We can take it as a project. It can be done as a live project. You can have multiple options available, and then you can also go for patenting. Okay, and I don't think NPTEL has any kind of this kind of scheme wherein we can do that. Okay, sir, I cannot answer on behalf of IDC, but yes, you can write a mail to them. I think even you'll be able to figure out mail of Professor Chakravarti, sir, because he's also part of DIC, which is Design Innovation Center, and he's a coordinator in that. Then probably he might have some lead or some direction, take any project in that sense. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Are there any questions in terms of content? Hmm. Yes. See if you even if you take example of any curriculum of any institution, the curriculum remains the same, right? Now for this course also, I think past few years the course content and case studies are probably the same, but then there are also say for example, you can say it a sequel to this course as well. So you have design, technology, innovation. There is another course like that. You have a course called Understanding Design by some other professor. So if you think that, okay, I've already gone through this course once, then you have some other courses from this particular faculty as well, and there are some other faculties from design who are uploading courses. So in terms of gaining knowledge, you will have more and more options on NPTEL. That should not be a problem for you. But yes, as of now, the course content for this particular course is the same, but the questions are different. So, like I mentioned, case studies are the same. Because it was a pre-recorded sessions, and it takes a lot of effort. So probably maybe sometime later you will see certain set of case studies. Uh, so, like sir has mentioned that we should create an idea book, and I think in that same idea book, what you can also do is you can make observations for any products, like you mentioned about Coke bottle. I could recall it the very initial brief which was given to the design team of Coke bottle was it should be something which should be identifiable even in the dark, and even if it breaks apart, then also it should be recognizable. Well, that is a very vague and with a memory of how the brief was given for design of that bottle. So it was so distinct that even if it was broken into shatters, people could actually say that okay, that's a Coke bottle, and even if in the dark you through the touch and feel you could relate that okay, that's a Coca-Cola bottle. So yes, a lot of things gets into that. So the best way is to see your daily use objects, try to analyze it, try to make observations, try to see that okay, what is the challenge? Probably you might be easily able to use that particular product, or might be that your children or the students or they might not be able to use that product. So it's always good to make those observations because that will lead to more like there is a term which is being used by a professor called serial innovation, right? So within that product, how you try to innovate, how you take it to the next level. So that can be a very basic exercise which we can start by observing, appreciating the products of daily objects. That's how life is. We don't appreciate the products. There is a chair, there is a table. Just imagine that if the table is that high, how will we use it? There is a spoon. So a lot of people have also come up with very interesting designs. So I think Katrina Kamprani is a designer, and she makes unusable objects. So if you try to look for her work, so those are designs which are not usable. Maybe I'll try to bring in some samples of it. And her idea is basically to appreciate design and to appreciate designers behind it, because a lot of thought and effort goes into it. So I think I would suggest that you start with the basic objects which we daily use and try to appreciate it, make observation what is the challenge we are getting. Probably there might be certain solutions which are already available. Do we have any more questions? It's already time now. Maybe we can conclude the session. So, if all of you, if possible, you can turn on your camera. I'll just take a screenshot for our first meet. And if it is comfortable for you, it's not a mandatory thing, but it's just more like a souvenir so that we have met and it will be good. All right. Just give me a minute. I'll take the screenshot. Okay, so I've taken it. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much for joining here and asking questions, making it more lively by sharing your stories, your experiences. And I think that's how we will learn more. We'll grasp things much more better. And more you share your stories, it will become much more interesting and happening session for all of us. So we have 3 more sessions to go, and let us hope that we gain a lot from these sessions. Thanks a lot.